All right, guys. Now it is time for a special segment we kind of refer to as the Coach's Corner here on Buzzer Beater. And I can't tell you how excited that there's no words to really communicate adequately enough how excited I am about having this coach on. And I have known this guy for quite a while, and we have a little bit of a history. But he's a busy man, and it's hard to lock down these guys, and I am so grateful. He is the head men's basketball coach at Okla.Wesleyan University. His name is Donnie Bostwick. Bring him on, guys. There he is. Look at that man. Oh, yeah, he's gorgeous. DB, so good to see
See
you.
you, guy.
I haven't seen you in a long time, and we chat more on text message than we do in person, and I hate that. But it is so good to have you on this show. And I want to dive right in, man. We don't have a lot of time. I don't want to waste your time. But I have some questions for you, and I would like the people to get to know you. So first, let me set the table real quick. And I know this might be a little hard for you to hear because I know you. And but what you guys got to know is this is a living legend. And there's not a lot of guys you can say that about. As active coaches go, he is the only active coach that has an 80% win rate. So that means he's 453 wins, 113 losses as of today. He has a game today against McPherson. So I have predicted that in other shows that Okla.Wesleyan will run the table on the KCAC. We still got to play the games, but that's my prediction. So that 80% win rate will go up if I am correct. And Donnie, correct me. I think you've been coaching in the NAIA for 17 years as a head coach. And at least that's what they think at the NAIA. We're pulling these numbers off the NAIA. So you're number 10. You just moved into the 10th most winningest coach, and that is surely based on the total number of wins, not the percentage, total number of wins at 453 right now. You're at number 10, and you probably don't even know this. I'm just kind of setting the table. This guy, not just to me because we're friends, but statistically he's a living legend, and he's going to go down in one of the Hall of Fame of the NAIA. And it's very important, I think, that people get to know the good guys. And most everybody is a really great guy, especially when it comes to coaching at the NAIA level. But this guy kind of sets the bar really, really high. Donnie Bostwick. He's at Okla.Wesleyan University, as I mentioned before. How long? Tell us about your run at Okla.Wesleyan. How does that look? How many years have you been there? I think you've been there twice. Tell us a little bit about that.
All right. I'm an NAIA all the way back to playing days. I played at John Brown University.
Okay.
Graduated in '91. Went coached high school 5 years. Came back to Okla.Wesleyan for 10 years. And then in 2007, God opened the door and had me, at the time, honestly, I thought he prepared me in a unique way. It's a long story, but I'll just say he prepared me in a unique way. We had some success at John Brown. And during that time, I think there's always been preparation for anybody that's ever accomplished anything. God sends you through a time period of preparation. And at the time, you're kicking and screaming and saying, why can't I get a head coaching job? I interviewed every school in the Sooner Conference. I interviewed all over the country, got second over 50 times probably, and just couldn't figure out why I couldn't get that job. And I thought I was going to be able to, land the John Brown job. I won a national championship my senior year as a player, and then won one as an assistant coach in '05. God had a different plan, and Okla.Wesleyan was that plan. And he said he was going to make something out of nothing. We interviewed there in 2004. At the time, the school was struggling. It was down to 150 students or so. And my wife and I left basically saying, this may be the worst job. They didn't have a budget at the time. They just had a new president come in. Coach Kent had a lot of success earlier, but then, like I said, the numbers were down. And he had some friends here because we have oil money in town that budgeted a lot of the budget. And so whenever he left, a lot of those guys left. So we were looking at a situation with no scholarships, no budget set up, a new president coming in, and I interviewed going, this is probably the worst job in America right now. So I did not take the job. I went back to John Brown. We won the national championship that year in '05, and Cloud
And
Nine
what was
type
your role
stuff.
at John Brown? What was your
Assistant
role?
coach,
Okay.
assistant coach. Yeah, Coach C. I played. Like I said, I played for him, and I went back with the goal of helping them get back to where we were when I left, and also to extend his career.
Hmm.
And I was able to do that. And obviously, like I said, God really stepped in into that situation. A kid named Brandon Cole came in, hit 527 threes, most threes in the history of the game.
Whoa.
And we had a guy behind him, a guard named Steve Briggs, as a freshman. He ended up hitting 498
Wow.
and was the third most in the history of the game. So on the same team, we had those two guys, all God, won the national championship in '05. I honestly had a really experience with God at that time. I'd always chased God because I grew up in church, but honestly, I drove the church bus. My wife was an awesome believer who taught my kids and everything, and I never missed a day that the church was open. But I never prayed other than just before we ate before a game. I didn't fast. I never read my Bible. I just went to church and got fed like a 3-year-old, to be honest with you. Um, I think I was considered a good guy, and I think I was going to heaven, but I just hadn't matured because my dad, he didn't. He became a Christian later in life, and so I can't sing, so why raise my hands and worship very loud? So I just didn't do that stuff. But because of a friend of mine who really oozed God in a special way, a coach that was Kevin Johnson's his name, was a St. Gregory's player and then coach there. He was an assistant coach at Oklahoma Baptist. We made the tournament in '05. It was the last team to get in, and it was uh, it was unique because we weren't even. We were the 31st seed. We sent our guys home. Didn't think we were going to make the tournament. Um, all the teams had to win their tournaments, conference tournaments for us to get in. Well, we got in, called the guys, got them back. I'm going into a banquet um, in Kansas City. We made the tournament, 32 teams in this banquet. And here comes KJ running up to me. Donnie B, what's up, man? This guy just oozes God. And he's like, I'm just like, man, I don't know. I'm dancing though. I got my shoes on, and he's laughing, but he's like, man, what are you talking about? You're probably gonna win this thing. You got God in you. I've been watching you since I was, a player, and I'm just sitting there going, like, just keep talking. You're just pouring life into me. And anyway, we won 5 straight games, won the national championship. Cloud 9 filling, that's March, and I'm actually you go into the next year now, and it's January. It's actually December 31st. I'm in my office. I'm calling recruits back before I didn't have a cell phone and stuff. So I'm calling recruits. Should have been home with my family, but I'm chasing that ladder of trying to climb success and replace guys that we had to replace. And I get a call, and KJ had a brain aneurysm. They said he was going to die, and I just got off the phone, just screaming at God, basically. And I heard him say, "Let's fight," And he called me to fight, and I was like, when coach says get in the game, you don't hesitate. And when God says in the game, get in the game, I think a lot of us do hesitate. I think it's like, oh, mission trip, that's too much money. Can't afford that. Or get up in front and speak. I don't like to speak. But I got in the game, and for the first time, I saw my mom on her knees praying for my dad and everybody else, and I knew. So I started fasting and praying. I knew KJ would make it if I stood in that gap. So that's what I did. Um, for 2 months, I'd sit in my trunk every night praying. He got flown miraculously to San Francisco. Only one doctor in the United States would touch him. And by Valentine's Day, he's coming home. I go in to tell Coach Sheehy I'm going to go see him before our game at Oklahoma Christian in Edmond. And Coach says, sit down, Donnie. And I'm like, okay. I sit down, and he says, Donnie, I know this wasn't the plan, but because I thought I was going to be the next head coach there. That's kind of my plan. And Coach said, he was going to retire, but he was going to help his son Clark, who deservingly so, was another great option, get that job. So my dream kind of died right there, but but God had a better plan. He said he was going to make something out of nothing. And I can't even tell you, but I was on cloud nine for 2 months, experiencing God's presence like I'd never experienced him. And he prepared me for that moment. And I tell me and my wife, we get a buddy who sends me a timeshare to Branson. So after the season's over, I don't have a job. I'm driving to Branson, Missouri for a timeshare just to get away because I went ahead and still tried to get the job and interviewed and everything. I didn't get it right. So jobless with 4 kids in a minivan driving to Branson. Um,
Wow.
and God's telling us both he's going to make something out of nothing. I get a call, Oklahoma-Wesleyan's open again. And yeah, that's my wife said, wait, that's less than nothing. That don't count. But in 2007, that's where we headed. Steve Briggs had set out a year after being a backup. His mom has lost her job, so he went home to help his mom and his little brother out. So I called him, and he was ready to come play again. Had a kid named Sadio Rojas, who ended up being another National Player of the Year. That was my 2 tuition scholarships. I had to raise some money for room and board. And we went 120 and 20 the next 4 years.
Whoa. This is at Oklahoma-Wesleyan.
Yeah.
Right?
We went 39 consecutive wins in a row, NAIA Division II record, and won the national championship in year 2. And God just said, you keep me above 500, and I'll take care of you. And he gave me 10 biblical principles to apply. And I applied them, and it didn't add up. But God never does. He does. He's not an addition guy. He's a multiplication guy, as you know.
So, and you're at Oklahoma-Wesleyan. I'm just trying to follow the timeline, and
Yeah.
this is great insight. And how many seasons were you there before
There
you
4
made your
years.
next match? So that's 4 years. You had National
Mm-hmm.
Players of the Year
At
in
2.
yeah, wow, and
And went.
and
Guy was way too good.
yeah, yeah, and the next call you get, you go to another school. Give us a little bit of that, just real quick, the roadmap. You don't have to
Okay.
tell us all the details,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you go somewhere else, and then you get back to Oklahoma-Wesleyan. Do I have that right?
Yes, sir. I'll say it briefly, quickly. We never had more than 2 scholarships here. That during my time period, during that 4 years. So you got to
Okay.
imagine what God was doing with 2 scholarships. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Yeah, and 100.
But
You
because of
said 112 and 20. Is that what it was?
120, 120 and
120.
20.
Wow, that's incredible,
Yeah,
man.
God was crazy. Nah,
Yeah.
that was all God.
Okay, go
And
ahead. Sorry.
so you're good. So I'm at that point. I'm getting some calls and getting some opportunities, maybe. And to be honest, like Oklahoma City University had called me, and I pretty much had the job based on what I was hearing after my first interview. It was the most national championships in any other program, probably the most storied program in NAIA basketball at the time. And so, uh,
I
so,
love it.
sorry, my dog's here having a little fun.
Do it.
So I go over to interview, and the second time before I interview, I get a call from Southwest Assembly's Guide University, and they say, hey, would you meet us in Oklahoma City before you go in for that interview? And
Oh wow.
so vice president, president come over. I have lunch with them. Honestly, I did not. I knew the coaches there before. I knew their scholarship situation was not great for the NAIA Division One, and so I was like, I have nothing to lose. I'm taking this Oklahoma City job, and so I kind of told administration that they just said, what is it? What would it take for you to consider us and for help our program, to become a spiritual leader on campus and that kind of thing. And so I just told them what I felt like. I said, hey, NAIA Division One gives 11 scholarships. Evangel, one of your sister schools, have won a national championship. They're giving about that. If you guys would give something like that, I think it's very doable. I think that would make it where you guys can be very competitive at the NAIA Division One level. And it was a great lunch. I didn't think too much about it. I thought, well, I'm gonna take this Oklahoma City job anyway, so I'll give them what they need floor plan here. So I went ahead and did the interview. What I thought was going to be a great interview. I walk in and I find out they just got a new president. and he was coming from University of Oklahoma, and he was going to bring an assistant coach from Oklahoma with him as the new head coach. So
Oh,
that
wow.
job disappeared.
Wow.
I go home. I tell my wife, well, it looks like we're going to come back to Okla.Wesleyan again. And because I know Sagu's not going to do what I suggested they do. And I got a call the next day saying, we'll do it. And so
From Sagu.
we came to Texas.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. And you were there for
6 years.
6 years. Okay.
Six
And
years, yeah. And
and
once again, God did
if I
just
remember
crazy
right,
stuff.
you went to a national championship, right?
It's year two again. Year two
Wow.
is always an interesting year for me.
Huh.
And that story is unbelievable. I don't have time to get into that one, but that was
Yeah.
another unbelievable.
Okay.
God called me to fight again for a friend of mine.
So essentially, 7 years later, you're back into Oklahoma-Wesleyan in Bartlesville, right?
Yes, I'm an Oklahoma guy. This is northeastern Oklahoma.
Northeastern.
Just
Are you close to
stomping
Arkansas?
grounds. Yeah, right here. My wife's from Arkansas. Obviously, John Brown's over there. I'm from Pryor, Oklahoma, which is just an hour and a half away from me here in the corner of
Okay.
Oklahoma.
So that's kind of home to
Yeah,
you.
it's home.
Oh,
It's
wow.
home. So it was.
So I don't know much about Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Is it a big town, small town? What's the feel?
About 35,000 people,
Okay.
about 35, 40 minutes north of Tulsa.
Okay,
It's the
so
Phillips
you're not
Petroleum
far from a
headquarters.
big city.
No, and Phillips Petroleum is the headquarters, has been here. So it's a nice town. It's
Okay,
kind of got it's far enough away from Tulsa that it's kind of got a big town feel, even though it's got 35,000 people. So it's a nice
got you.
place.
So you got oil money there. All right. So now is your scholarship situation better when you come back?
Yeah, that's my assistant coach had become the AD. My assistant coach previously had become the
Got it.
AD. He actually played for me in high school, one of my best friends. So
Oh,
that was a
wow.
great situation. And he called me, um, and we just put it this way: I had a friend that used to play. This is kind of how God does things. So a former player of mine that I recruited, John Brown, who found Christ whenever he came to John Brown. He's now a pastor in Houston. His best friend in high school had came to Okla.Wesleyan University and played basketball with the AD, who also played for me in high school. So he had two close friends. I did not know him, but he had two close friends, some best friends that were acquaintances with me who played for me. So they both were telling him, you know, he became a very successful businessman. He was on the board here at Okla.Wesleyan, and he said, "What would it take to bring Donnie back?" And they told him, hey, we're gonna have scholarships, and because it's fixing to go NAIA Division 1, is going to go one division,
Hmm.
and so he wants a chance to compete scholarship wise, and so if you can do that, I think we could talk to him, and so they stepped up the scholarship situation here, which made it very much more, uh, of a more lucrative opportunity,
Yeah.
and all I have to do is focus on spiritual life on campus, FCA, and leading my young men. I didn't have to be an AD, or any of
Hmm.
that anymore.
Yeah.
So it was just a great opportunity. My wife wanted to get back closer to home and family, and so as much as I loved Sagu, it was an amazing place. It was basically just an opportunity to move back home.
Oh, wow. That's okay. So that's why I was actually going to ask you, why is Oklahoma-Wesleyan special to you, but I think that brings all that together. It's kind of home for you, and at
It
least close
is.
enough. And of course your wife, happy life, right? Um,
Exactly.
uh, I know you're a huge family guy. I've met all your kids and your wife, and just a great role model family. I think, especially in today's environment, just across the nation. And I would attribute that, or I would say that you attribute that to all faith, all God, and how the success of raising a family. And your youngest is how old now?
19 just graduated, so we finally got
You
an
don't
empty
look that
nest.
old,
Yeah.
Donnie. You
Oh
must
my
have.
goodness.
You started young, brother. Yeah, assistant coach with 4 kids. Wow. All right, let's move on. We could kind of go down that rabbit hole, and I don't know that we should. All right. So you're 17-1 right now. Let's talk about right now. Um, you're in the KCAC, the Kansas. Now, was Oklahoma-Wesleyan always in the KCAC?
No, when I was here previously, we were in a different conference. We had College of the Ozarks and Bellevue in that conference, which we had three of us were in the Elite Eight 2 of the 4 years I was here.
Okay.
We played College of the Ozarks in the national championship, Division II. So that was a very powerful conference.
Hmm.
College of the Ozarks actually hosted a national tournament. So we played our rival on their floor for the national championship in '09, which was crazy. So then we come back, and now they moved into the Kansas Collegiate Athletic Conference, KCAC. And that earlier when I was here previously, they had scholarship limits, so the league wasn't one of the more powerful leagues.
Hmm.
But they removed those restrictions. They added Oklahoma-Wesleyan, a few other schools to the league, and the league was on the way up. Put it that way. I felt like the opportunity was great. Knowing we were going to go one division, knowing my experience it's in the Sooner and understanding both divisions, winning a national championship at Division One and Division Two,
Hmm.
I knew what it was going to take, and it was going to take God again, just to be honest with you. But
Sure.
I knew,
Yeah.
at least I knew what was coming.
So, and I want to jump into this year's team really quick, but I just had a question. You've been to the NAIA national tournament, whether it's Division Two, Division One. It's all Division One now, so there's 256 men's basketball programs out there. But you've been to the national tournament more than you haven't. Do you? What in 17 years of coaching? How many times? Just
Um,
if you don't know the exact number, ballpark it like
Missed 16 times.
15.
16 times. 16 as a head coach.
Oh wow, 16 every year.
We, we, we the first
Every
year at
year.
Sagu,
Oh my
the
goodness.
first year at Sagu, we won 24 games, and we
Oh
didn't make
okay.
it the first year at Sagu.
All right. All right.
So
All right.
16 out of 17, but we actually
Got you.
went to the Christian College National Tournament that year,
Mm-hmm.
and in Grace, which obviously has a great,
Oh yeah.
great school and everything. So that year we kind of got robbed. We were probably the one team. We were the next to last team that we were on the bubble. We didn't get in,
Got you. Oh yeah, in the NAIA
but
tournament. All right. So yeah,
correct.
they the one year that fooled your perfect NAIA tournament experience or record. Um, so you've been a lot, and it looks like there's. I mean, barring anything that could be unforeseen at this moment, it looks like you're going back again, and you're 17-1. This team, a little bit. I don't want to say it's unlikely, but do you call this team young, or do you feel like you guys have
No, it's a
a lot of experience?
combination. We actually have a starting five that are juniors and seniors with a ton of experience.
Okay.
And then we have a backup five that are freshmen and sophomores, our backup six or seven there that are all really young. And so our bench is young and our starters do have the experience.
Yeah, so I've seen you in the past. You've kind of had hockey teams for basketball teams. You'll bring in five to replace five. I think maybe you're the first coach. I've been around basketball a long time. I think you're the first coach I've ever seen do that, and maybe a couple other guys that do it, but not many. Do you have that kind of team? Are you doing that kind of thing,
Yeah,
or
we do it at least one rotation.
okay, all right. So you still have the horses to be able. You feel like you're pretty deep.
We are deep. We're young and getting better every day at that group, but we definitely can go. I think I've got at least nine guys that can play in the last 5 minutes of a national tournament game.
That's unbelievable, dude. So 17-1, you got one loss. Let's explain that loss. How'd you lose that?
Southwest Christian, number four in the country. Well, they climbed as high as number four. They're number nine right now. Another one of our league teams that have just tremendously grown and been a team that's won a national or they've been to the been in the national tournament, advanced a lot lately. Had 2 National Players of the Year. They got a guy who now is a candidate for National Player of the Year, one of the leading scorers in the country. Um, they're really good, and they shoot it really well. They came in and hit, I think it was eight or nine threes the first half.
Mm.
They were like 8 for 16. We were 1 for 18 to start the game. Got
Oh my
behind,
goodness.
came back and had it at 10 pretty much the whole second half. We just they're really good about playing ahead, um, and we would get to 10 or 9, and they spread the court and get fouled, get to the free throw line, and they outplayed us, and we just didn't play real well. We missed about 10 free throws that game as well. It was just a nightmare shooting night. I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you. You can understand this. The game felt like more of a spiritual battle than a basketball game. I've had 2 or 3 of those. One there at Sagu the first time I carried my Bible, and we got beat by LSU Shreveport at home by about 35,
Mm.
and then went on a 17-game winning streak after that, and ended up in the national championship. So
That
that
was
felt like a
that year.
spiritual battle.
Wow.
That was that year. Yeah.
How about that? Okay. Well, and so you think you're going to run the table? Mm.
That's here's what God is. God's about the journey.
Yeah.
He's not a
No,
destination
but I'm
guy.
asking you what you think. I get it.
And
I
so
totally get it.
I I do have crazy faith, and
Yep.
we do have that ability to do that.
Hmm.
If God feels like He can help prepare us even better by, you know, we
Yeah.
have the option. It's our choice. He gives us the choice if we are going to play fearless or we're going to play
Yeah.
to our abilities. That's our option. And,
So
everybody has the options to do what we believe we, have the option to do. And
yeah.
so we have the ability to.
Hmm.
We have some really tough road games coming up.
Yep.
Mac at home, they've lost 4 games. They're really good. They
Yeah.
beat Southwestern.
They're sneaky
We got to
good.
go.
You got
We
them
got to go to
tonight.
Southwestern. Oh yeah, we
Oh
got to
yeah,
go to
and now you got
Southwestern.
to go to Southwestern. They got a little bit of confidence because they got the early win. I
Mhm.
think you guys. I've kind of looked through, and I think you're solidifying a little more as a team, and that seems to be on course with a Donnie Bostwick coaching style. The teams just keep getting better and better throughout the season, and they tend to keep buying in, believing they see it, and I predicted that you're going to run the table. So on other shows, I know, coaches. I always like to approach the line of coaches never like to talk about the future too much, and but you do believe that it looked like you froze. Do we still have him, James? Oh no, there he
I think I'm
is.
back.
All right, yeah, you're back. Yeah, I know you guys don't like to talk too much about the going forward, but I do like to press in to see what the mindset is. I know you always believe. You never, man. I've been on the court with you and just went playing pickup ball, and you don't like to lose no matter what. I mean, I get it. You're a very spiritually sound guy and very mature in your faith walk, but you also, have a competitor inside you, and you don't like to lose, and you're not just accepting that, and I think that has a lot to do with your past and being a player and all that. Um, Defense is really your trademark, I think. I mean, your teams have shot a lot of threes, but I think it's more defense, and you got the numbers to back it up. This last year, you were at 64 and a half points allowed a game. You're at 62, slightly over 62, and some change. So it's a little better this year. Is that how you're winning games? And where did that defensive philosophy come from?
Um, yeah, I mean you're exactly right. Everybody knows defense wins championships, rebounds wins rings. I think the secret here is working hard,
Hmm.
working together. If you don't do those 2 things, I think you can play different styles. I've had to, we led the country in steals the year we went at SAGU to the national championship. We led the country in defensive field goal percentage in 2005 when we won it at 37. 2009, we were 38, and that's top three in the country defensive field goal percentage the year we won it. 2000, 2013, we went to the finals. We were not as good there, but we led the country in steals, which kind of made up for that because if you couldn't stop it, field goal percentage with the stop, you just had to steal the ball.
Yeah.
And now we have a combination of that. We're kind of leading the country in steals right now, top
Yeah,
five
you
in
are.
defensive field goal percentage.
You're
And the other thing is just
I,
rebounding.
I just want to let everybody know, is watching is you're averaging over 12 steals a game. That's that's just unbelievable. I don't.
I got a little Rambo out here. I had a young man named Dominic Rambo and Hondo there in
Yeah.
Sagu, and
I'm familiar.
they were unbelievable.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then I have
Rambo.
now a guy named DJ Talton, who's very similar to Dominic Rambo, who he's just that guy. He leads the country in steals right now, and he sets a tone, and he just creates havoc, and everybody else kind of follows lead, flies around.
And
they
I
enjoy
noticed
playing defense.
he's the one guy that really doesn't come off the floor too much. He's averaging over 30 minutes a game, and so definitely the team leader. It appears on paper. I've only seen about 2.5 of your games, and definitely he's crazy. He's crazy on defense.
Last year he got hurt. He got both ankles, one high ankle sprain, and tweaked his Achilles in the same play at Southwestern. And so we had him about 75% the last 6 games. And then we lost Brandon Bird. So last year we were really clicking, and I thought we had a really good shot to do something special. And then those 2 guys got hurt, and that really hurt us. This year he's back healthy again. And like I said, you can always miss shots.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're living and dying with your jumper, then you're going to lose some games.
Yeah.
But if you play defense and you offensive rebound,
yeah.
We were 2 for 20 last game at K-Dub in a battle. 2 for 20 from 3. They had 9 threes the first half, and we win the game by 16 points because we got 18 offensive rebounds and we held them to 17 points the second half. So defense.
You're almost
it travels.
It does, and rebounds travel very well as well. And you're leading. Here's a stat. Your margin, you out rebound your opponents by 9, almost right at 9, just slightly. I think it's 8.9. It's hard to overcome as an opponent when you're getting out rebound, and especially if it's on the offensive side. So. It looks like you guys crashed the boards on offense and just take away second chance possessions. And you might be one of the lower scoring teams as Okla.Wesleyan, as maybe I've seen in the past at 77.5. That's nothing to be sad about, but I'm just talking historically. Maybe one of your worst shooting percentage teams. You're under 30%, and you're not taking quite as many. It looks like you're taking more 2-point opportunities. I would attribute that probably to offensive glass, putbacks. The hustle. Just out rebounding teams. Tell me where I'm wrong.
We've got a 2-time All-American in the post as well that shoots 70% from the floor. So we get that second of the ball too.
Yeah, why not just let him, shoot 70% all the time? His name is Litsky. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. So I'm 1 for 1 today.
Let's go.
And you're allowing.
Let me give you a quick something here.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I tell this to everybody. Our formula for basketball is pretty simple. 4 things. Threes, we want to beat you in 3 ball points. So, if we hit 7, you hit 6, we're +1. Offensive rebound points, we want to beat you there. So say we're +6 and, on you on there. So we get 10 points to your 4. Transition points off our defense, say we're 10. Once again, you have 6, that's 4. Let's say it totals over a period of 10 years, we beat
Mm-hmm.
our opponents per game 10 points in those areas.
Okay.
I did the math.
Yep.
And so you have to beat us 10 to beat us. And then if you hold your opponent under 40% and you win those four, you're going to win all your games. You win 3 out of those 4, you win about 80% of your games. And that's what we've been able to do. So it's really simple on the math side. Now doing that's really hard. But
Mm-hmm.
if you can pull that off,
But at
you're going to
least you
win a
know
lot of ball
where to
games.
look, and that's a
Yeah.
great tip for any coach out there. Wow, you've kind of given a little bit of the recipe for success. 80% win rate, ladies and gentlemen. 80% for Donnie Bostwick's career. I think I might would take some notes if I were you and you were asking the question. Here's a quick one about um, potential players out there. If you're a player that is trying to get into the college ranks, they want to play for Donnie Bostwick. What advice would you give them? What do you need to see from that player? What do you want to see?
I mean, first, it's got to be an open heart to understanding where their secret sauce is, and that's Jesus Christ. Um, the Holy Spirit in us provides us an opportunity to have strength, peace, power, and it's we cheat. We cheat. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, we cheat. We take communion before every game. We put God, the Anointed One, in us. This year we've been doing that, and when you do that, you're playing with an unfair advantage. But everybody has that same opportunity. What is he doing in us? Well, once again, it's our choice to make a decision every play if we're going to play hard for him. If you're doing it just to get your own personal pride, you're going to always end up being selfish and not make the extra pass or not go to the boards because you want to rest a little bit. But if you just give it all to him and play, when a guy comes to my office, we're going to have probably an hour plus talk about him and God. And we go on mission trips. I started there at Sagu, going to Africa and Asia and Bhutan and Angola. And we've been in Dominican and the Bahamas since I've been back here. And, you know, we,
Wow.
we know that God, I hadn't even seen a palm tree before I became a head coach. So now God's taken me all over the place with basketball.
Yeah.
And I try to teach these kids what I didn't learn until I was 30 some plus years old. When you go all in, when you give everything to Him, like there's so much more available on this earth for you
Yeah.
instead of just being okay. We're not made to be okay. God made us to shine
Yeah.
and to really excel for Him to bring Him glory. We're very blessed not to be in the middle of a war. These guys could be drafted and go to battle somewhere, and
Yeah.
instead we get to go out and just play a game and let
Yeah.
God give us these gifts, and let's show people what we can do with those gifts for His glory.
That's awesome. So that's if you want to play for Donnie Boswick, that's priority number one. Is there any skill trait that you're looking for? Anything that these guys can bring to the table? If they're sending you videos or just trying to get with this winning program, which I'm sure a lot of people want to be. We play to win the game, as Herm Edwards said. And that's people want to be a part. I think because they learn on the top layer, they see you're winning, right? And then you get to share the secret sauce because winning kind of opens up the door. And then you get to kind of go a little bit deeper and your road for your young men is building up the spiritual man and then letting everything else flow out of that. But I'm sure it's not just good enough to be a healthy Christian and lover of Christ. You got to have a little bit of skill to play for Donnie Boswick, or am I wrong?
No, I mean you're right. You're going to sit there and I'm going to point to David. I'm going to point to Jesus, two of the toughest men obviously ever walked this earth.
Yep.
The things they accomplished, what they did, the battles they were willing to fight for us to get us where we're at today. We're supposed to be, now that same bloodline. And so, like, if you're not going to dive on the floor, if you're not going to go to the boards, if you're not going to put your chest on somebody, if you're not going to shoot it, fear blocks more shots than anybody.
Mm.
And if you're going to shoot it with fear and you're worried about missing shots,
Hmm.
I'm not worried about you missing. I'm worried about take every shot you think you're going to make and go
Yeah.
rebound every shot that's taken and
Wow.
guard everybody as a unit. And if you do that, and we can just simply outwork people and win by
Yeah.
probably 60% of our games. So now you
Yeah.
give me about 20%. We got to like really scout and prepare ourselves and
Hmm.
execute. It's almost humorous. Like this year, our percentages are so low. Free throws, threes. We've won. It doesn't add up. That's what I said before. I said, God's not a God of addition. He's multiplication. He breaks bread and feeds 5,000. So
Hmm.
we just kind of laugh and say, how do we win that game? You look at the stats; it doesn't add up.
Yeah.
But usually, when it comes down to it, we have more shot attempts because of offensive rebounds,
Yeah.
steals, and effort, which overcomes our weaknesses.
Hmm.
And where we're weak, God is strong.
Yeah.
And so when we do hit, which I always do this, we start off it's defense, and we're going to figure that out, and then offense is going to catch up. So by March, I think our offense will be pretty good, and our
Okay.
defense will still be around. So I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
the secret there too.
Yeah, it's gonna be the same defense because it's always 100%. It's hustle, and so priority one, make sure you're in tune with your faith, obviously in Christ here, and number two is be tenacious and not as focused on actual sheer talent as it is how willing are you to work hard. If you're willing to, this is old school, Donnie, and you're bringing old school over to the new school, and then if I'm hearing you right, and Dale, I think was it Dale Brown or one of the old coaches. He always said, and he coached NBA college level, was very successful. He says, if you give me someone that will work harder than everybody else, they will learn on their own how to put the ball in the bucket. And I think that especially in college ball, maybe even more in the NAIA, that is a secret. Not really a secret, but that is a recipe for success. It seems to be secretive, but it's really not. It's just you just outwork everybody. And I will agree. I look at the stat sheet, and statistically, you guys are down. And so we've come up with James, bring up the CSPI. And by the way, I'm sure you saw the RPI release recently. We have you guys ranked at 14 just by the numbers, not no opinion or anything. No, the CSPI. Do you have the our algorithm? So we have you at 14. RPI has you at 15. That just means your stats, but proof is in the pudding of exactly what you're saying, because we've ranked you, and I think even the coaches poll ranked you really high. So you're in the top 10. I don't know. I forget where you are on the coaches poll, because as the NAI says, it's kind of meaningless. And there's the top poll. You're number 4. And where do we have them, James? 7. I think we have them at 7 on our. We're going to in this show release our top 25 for this week. We do it every week, and you're still at 7. You were at 7 last week, and 7. But look, your CSPI number is lower. You still have teams. Southwestern's got a higher. This just better stats, right? It's just on the paper, but you're outworking everybody. And you only have one loss, which is to Southwestern, and they've got 2 losses. I think I could argue that you could be higher, but we kind of try to stay true to some of the statistical stuff, and that way we're measuring hair. I mean, it's very slim margins of whoever. And you mentioned you are you're a Raider for your conference and an ARC Raider. Is that correct? Is that the right terminology? Okay.
Correct.
And how many ARC Raiders are there?
So there's let's see, we have 5. There's three teams in each arc, 3 conferences, excuse me, and then
Okay.
5 arc raiders across the country that divide up to 15 conferences, and there's a 5 or 6 anyway. And then those guys, we come together and we rate the top 14 out of those 3 or 4 teams in that conference or in that arc. And
Okay.
that's where they go together and decide. The national selection committee chooses the at-large bids at the end of the season.
Okay, so so if, and I'm gonna just say this and correct me where I'm wrong. And we've talked to a few people about this, and there seems to be a little bit of discrepancy of how all this works. But you've been an ARC rater, I think you're going to be able to give us a good understanding. So, the coaches poll is kind of for publicity purposes only. They say that right on the website, and it's a more. I don't want to say it's a popularity contest because it is what it is between coaches, and I argue that coaches don't have the time to know how good or bad teams really are, but we records begin to, and you kind of know how tough a conference is historically, and you weigh all that in. But it's just using the best educated eye test that coaches could do. So that's a coaches poll. Now you're ARC rating, you're using RPIs, you're starting to use the NAIA's real numbers and statistics and figure that out. So when it comes to selection time, in just a few weeks, getting into postseason, you guys are going to use the RPI to determine what the seeding is and who gets in the teams after, like when it comes to after the auto bids are made, and now you get the other type of bid. You guys are determining that. Is that correct? As an ARC rater?
That is correct. It is correct. We there's 5 primary criteria that we go by: RPI, strength of schedule, net efficiency, record against top 50 RPI, and then your seeding in your ARC. And we look at that as our primary criteria. Then secondary criteria, you'll look at head-to-head, last 10 games, record versus top 100 RPI. And so I would say RPI is probably the primary, even though because of NCCAA games are counted the exact same and home and away are counted the exact same. Strength of schedule there's some error. There's some error in there. We all know that. It's not a perfect formula yet.
Yeah.
And
it's always based on sample size.
People can abuse the system and beat a really bad team and play a really weak schedule and beat them 100 points and have their net efficiency being really high, and their RPI could be high because they haven't lost games. Where another team's got 6 losses, but they've played an incredibly tough schedule, and they're probably on paper don't look as good, but they're better. So you got all that formula stuff, and we have to put all that in there. And in the end of the game, you still got to win games in conference games. Our conference, we're only getting 5 or 6 non-conference games. So I tried to play USAO, Texas Wesleyan, Mid American Nazarene. We beat all those guys. So how do we have laugh about it? How do we have a strength of schedule that's so bad whenever I've played?
I get it, and that was my next point. Is that was a little bit ridiculous how low you guys were on SOS strength of schedule, and it didn't make any sense because when I looked through, there's only a few teams in top 25 that have what I would call a no cupcake schedule. You didn't schedule any cupcakes. When you made that schedule, Texas Wesleyan is historically a really good achieving program. And, that's potentially a very tough match to go. Didn't you come down to Texas, or did they go to you?
Came there, both places. That was Christian also. They got the 6th toughest schedule. They've played Division II UCO, and they counted all those games. So even though their record's bad, that's a really good team for their records. That
it's hard to see.
Really
I definitely wouldn't call them a cupcake. Like a cupcake, if I could define it, is you schedule it because you know you're going to win. That's why you schedule it, and I hate to say it like this, but you're kind of padding the stats just a little bit. And I'm not saying I use Mayville State as an example. Because it's really not their fault, especially the teams up in North Star and Frontier. They have little access, so they go across the border up into Canada and they beat up on teams. And Mayville State had 2 games where they won by almost 100. And that's just padding the stats, and it inflates where your RPI, or in our case, we created our own algorithm there, and we have really, really been trying to dial this in over years of just watching and experience, and there's no way to really dial out the stats when you play cupcakes, and then there's no way for us to really tell when Okla.Wesleyan, for in this example, doesn't play a cupcake team and they still have great stats. Those stats are just there, and when you look at it at surface value, you don't know unless you just go deep dive on their schedule, which is, it's hard to do. Now, AI coming out, they're going to be able to do that a lot quicker and faster, but I think we're still a couple years away from that. And so to the eye test, you just got to kind of, you got to lean into your eye test is what I'm saying. So, yeah, you guys
get the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
Ravens with Ray Lewis and the defense that won it all with a very average offense.
Yep.
Then you have, Kurt Warner's team, who's unbelievable, won it all with offense. So they're both equally as good. I don't know who would win going head to head on those two teams.
Yeah. So do you guys?
Offense gets a little more love.
I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to ask you: do you guys look at it when you talk about who goes where in selection time? Who would win against who? Is that ever a way you look at it? So, do you ever say who's going to beat Grace? And I'm just going to use this year. Like, who is going to beat Grace, or who is going to beat Okla.Wesleyan? Who is going to beat the team that just doesn't lose in their conference? And what other conference team will beat that team? Is there a way that you guys decide that outside of RPI?
It's more, I think what happens is you go into that room and you spend 2 days seeding teams 1 through the top seeds. So 64 teams, we're going to seed half the teams, 32.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, to be honest with you, I don't like it, but I used to love it when we had 32 teams go to the national tournament and we seeded 1 through 32 and 32 played 1.
Yeah.
But now it's not that way. You look at, because we're you got your regional first 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
You got money situations with flights, everything else.
That's tough.
It's just, I just don't like the situation, because we did all that, and then all of a sudden you wake up the next morning and NAIA has to move it all around because of flights and stuff, and then we try to have a number. There's a number at each regional site. They have to, the seeds have to add up to a certain amount number wise, and so it's an equal playing field in that region. And so it's not exactly perfect scenario, especially like I said, with travel and money and everything. I wish they would just go 1 round at the highest seed, and then the 32 teams go to the national tournament. We keep trying to beg them to do that. But
yeah, maybe in the future. That would be a fun tournament. You're talking about all under one roof, right? It's already tough with it's already a marathon with 16, right? So it's the toughest tournament in the world, if you ask me. The toughest basketball tournament in the world. You have to win 6 games in 7 or 8 days. Is that right?
Yeah. Used to be you had to win 5 and 6, and then you have like the little break now. So you have like more like 6 games in 9 days, but 9 or 10 days. But you go back up there and you have to win 4 and 6. That's why I started playing with the bench. We didn't have media timeouts for a long time, and that really played into our fact. The year I was at SAGU, I think we'd have won it all, but then in the national championship game on TV, Georgetown, gets media timeout, so they get to rest their players. That team was built to wear people out, and we weren't able to wear them down with the media timeouts. He did a great job of calling timeouts every.
Oh wow!
He called it before ever media timeout. He called a timeout, and I just couldn't wear their big guys out.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah, man, that's really neat. I'm kind of remembering that.
4 minutes, hard as they can.
Yeah.
See, they come out of high school playing 40 minutes of pacing themselves. AAU tournaments of 3 games in a day.
Yeah.
And they're trained to do that. And I'm like, okay, let's go against those kids, and then we're going to play them with guys that'll play 4 minutes as hard as they can and sub new guys. And then over a period of 40 minutes, we're going to beat a lot of teams because of that.
Yeah.
That thought process.
But come tournament time, come tournament time, especially when what can you do? it's hard to wear teams down. But in fairness, though, that is a marathon of a tournament run. So, if you're not worn down by the championship game, you're pretty good.
Correct.
Who? All right. I need you to take off your Okla.Wesleyan hat for just a second. Who's beating Grace?
I mean, Indiana Wesleyan was up 10 on them at half. They're obviously able to beat them.
They also lost by 14 that game.
They did, and they're going to return another game a little later, which will be intriguing. I would say Langston right now has shown the horses to be able to compete with them, no doubt. I believe we have the ability to do so. I think you have to have a big man that can match up with their big guy. And I think we have that. I think you have about another Lark Jones, really, really tough.
They got Marion tonight, I believe.
Not LC State. I'm sorry.
Bethel.
Who won it all last year? I'm going blank.
Yeah.
I called Idaho. Lewis and Clark's were my former player. Austin Johnson's up there doing a great job, and they were in the finals and beat us a couple years ago. But there's a lot of teams. I'm gonna say top 16 teams.
Go back to
on a given night.
Coach's
Beat anybody.
James.
Beat anybody.
Really?
It's that night. Matchups are so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Foul trouble. What if he gets 2 fouls right out of the gate? He gonna stay in the game, pick up his third?
Well,
last game we were down to K-Dub because my point guard picked up his second foul 4 minutes in. He had to set 10 minutes, and that's why we were down 10 at half. He plays the second half, and it's 45-17. Big difference.
Yeah. So Elijah Malone, the big guy for Grace, he gets a lot of attention, right? And he's good, and rightfully good. So. But they are not. And I've had this debate with some other coaches. I don't think people understand. They got a philosophy like you. They have a lot of guys that play, and at the end of the year, I'm gonna give you this stat, and this was. I had to run it several times just to believe it. At the end of the year, December 31st, we ran the stats, and it's a NBA stat that's trickled down to college, but it's the per 40, right? So it's so let's go points per 40. They had 11 players in the top 100 per 40. That doesn't even seem like it would be. Like, I had to rerun it because it does not seem possible that any team.
And their schedule's tough too.
And they don't do cupcakes either. And Crossroads, arguably the toughest conference right now. And
no doubt.
And then I get a lot of grief, but I think River State's is really strong this year. I know historically no one says that, but. I could go down the list and show you where they have teams that on any given night can really show up. So they're tough, Mid-South, and the reason I bring those guys up is because when they play out of conference, like when you play out of conference, you go pretty local, like Sooner, Hard, or GPAC, or something like that. Well, their local out of conference is Wolverine Hoosier, Mid-South, who I think has one of the best teams in the country, probably the second best team. In just my opinion, they've taken a bad loss, inexcusable loss, so we can't put them up there. But Cumberland's is another 10, 11 deep team that to have athletes like crazy. No one's talking. I mean, it's not no one's talking about it, but you can see they're unbelievably athletic, loaded. They play defense. They
Georgetown. That Mid-South.
Georgetown.
The Mid-South has lost teams, obviously, to D2, and they lost teams to other conferences the last couple of years. But still, the top of that league is they're going to beat anybody on a given night. You always have a team or two out of the South.
That area is crazy tough, and when you go outside of conference, and so Grace they have not won less than 11 points this year.
Nah, they dominated at a whole nother level. I've watched them numerous times. we have synergy, so we can watch every game. All the
Yeah.
all the Raiders, all the coaches have it these days, so it's not like we can't see games. And
Yeah.
to watch what they did the second half, obviously coming, their point guard special too, which is another. You have to have a point and a big guy, and they got shooters around that and tough guys. So Coach Moore is a good friend. His mentor won a national championship back when it was one division. And he's mentored him. He played underneath him. Um,
Yeah.
he has just as much spiritual strength and leadership as well. So I don't fear nobody, but
Yeah.
I do admire certain
Respect.
people.
It's just
He's
yeah. There's a different
he's,
level
he's
of
one
respect.
he's one of the guys. Like I said, Greg Tonigal. I know their faith. Northwestern. Another guy who's won it all back in the
Yeah.
day when they were one division NAIA.
Yeah.
That's another. The Morning Sides. Those programs on a given day when we get down there, you got to beat 6 of those kind of teams,
Okay. So
which is an amazing
yeah,
run.
it is a crazy run. It's the toughest tournament in basketball. I don't care what anybody says. As far as tournaments go, the national tournament run, especially now it's a 64, you do get a little break between your first two rounds. But even when you get to the final 16, it's unbelievable. It's triathlon tough. And so not always, very rarely does the best team in the season win that tournament. It's different. It's an endurance test. This might be the first year I can confidently look at this and go, I think Grace has got the horses just because of that other stat, that per 40. I don't put a lot of stock. It's just crazy that they had 11 players top 100 per 40.
They're the team to beat. They're the team to beat, no doubt. They're
So
they're
Crossroads.
loaded. They're top to bottom.
Yeah, we said Crossroads probably the toughest team conference in. So where do you guys rank your conference, the KCAC? This is what we came up with. This is sheer just numbers. This was not. We didn't put really any opinion in this. We just kind of let how many teams based on record and where they played. So it's really the top 50 out of the top 100 teams in America in the NAIA, and we just kind of let the numbers speak for itself. But and not really even trying to say it's right or wrong. Where do you put yourself in, or the KCAC in this list?
I think you have the Crossroads, past history. What's hard is how far you go back. Sooner back in one time was just flat out dominant. The Golden State was
Well, I'm
dominant.
talking about
They've
this
lost
year, though.
teams. They've changed.
Yeah.
This year specifically, okay, because
Yeah.
the last few years we've had 5 teams get in, 3 teams advance to to the national tournament, or we had 4 teams advance, 2 get to nationals, Elite 8. So
Okay.
we've been there the last few years. So we're on the climb as a KCAC. But this year specifically, us, Southwestern, and Kansas Wesleyan right now are just a tier opportunity ahead. But then you go down below that, the Evangel, who advanced, they have 5 of their top 7 back in their horses, and they played a top 10 schedule, but they're number
Having a
7
tough
in our
year.
conference
Oh wow.
because our league's tough. They moved from the heart of
Yeah.
America to our league, and all of a sudden they found out our league's tough.
Yeah.
And it's not easy is everybody, sit there and acts like, hey, okay, yeah, you're top heavy. I'm like, well, we're 7, 8 deep now. And so that's not the case. We have 15 teams, but we're 7 or 8, 9 teams. Bethel goes to MacU. They beat Woods. They go overtime at Mid American Nazarene, and they're middle. They're not even in our top 12 in our arc. Bethel and Evangel, both of those teams are national tournament potential level teams. They can beat anybody on a given night. They don't have the 2, players of the year they've had the last couple of years with Bird and Jalen Scott. So they're not that. But he does an incredible job, and that's a really good team. So considering our depth and some of these other teams you have listed, we have more teams that are capable. They have 3 or 4. They have 4 teams, maybe 5 in the Heart of America, counting Peru State, that are even pictured in that.
Yeah.
I mean, we have 7 or 8 or 9. You have a lot of leagues, like I would say the Golden State. They keep losing teams to D2 or switching out a little bit, so they're adding some teams. That's a really good league. That year after year, those guys come out of there are tough. Arizona Christian, the
James,
Vanguards,
go
and I
back
could
to
just go
the
on
conference graphic.
with those. That's a league. Lewis, and you have College Idaho's as good as anybody. They could have won it the last 2 years actually. They blew a game to
I'll
the
be honest
national
with you.
championship
I'm not
before.
high on College of Idaho. I don't think they're as. I know last year they had a crazy run, and they
Well, the
won the
year
tournament, so
before,
they're tough. Yeah, and
the
the
year
year before.
before in the semifinals, they
Yep,
were ahead 5 points with 2 minutes to go
yep.
to the team who won it. They could have won it back to back easily.
Hmm.
They do some things that's different with the zone and stuff, but he does a great job. Just put it that way. And the
Yeah,
year before
no,
that, Lewis and
no doubt.
Clark was in there. So the history
Yep.
says teams that are win that league have a chance at a national championship level.
Mm.
We've got to prove that we can win the national championship, not just advance to the Elite Eight, the KCAC.
Hmm.
And until we do, with the Crossroads, with used to be the Sooner.
Mi-
Right now, it hasn't been the Sooner in a few years.
Yeah,
But the first Sooner, it was championship.
yeah.
National
They were
championship
in
level
top four.
team.
Yeah, yeah, right.
So right now,
I think
we're right
Sooners
there in
down
the
this year.
top of this top of that. We're on the top of that second tier, I would say, is where the
Okay,
KCAC belongs
okay. So yeah,
with
yeah.
the GPACs and Heart of
Legitimately, you might could get breaking that top five conference. I mean, in perspective, there's 21 conferences, including the independent, the continental. So there's 21 conferences out there. So if you're in the top seven, you're in the top third, and I think there is a good argument that Kansas Collegiate could be in that top third echelon and maybe even higher. Yeah, we got a sample size now.
national players of the year, the teams that advanced the national tournament. The
Yep,
last 3 years, we argue that. This year,
yep,
we definitely have three teams that are no-brainer national tournament teams right now, and then
sure.
there's probably four others that are bubbles right now that have
Is there
beaten good teams.
is there any dark horse team that maybe you've come across in the nation that you go, man, these guys are not getting not a good term, but you'll know what I mean. They're not getting the love nationally, but they're sneaky good and could show up deep run in the tournament. Is there any dark horse out there?
So many of those, to be honest with you.
I
That
agree.
by
I
the end of
agree.
the day, you got to, I could mention three Sooner teams. I could mention a team like William Woods, who's played just a horrendously tough schedule that has played everybody like Langston at Langston tight, but they just lost a lot of close games. They lost to K-Dub, they lost to Bethel, close games. That was the same exact team who won the Independence and then advanced last year, and then added the best player. So you got a team like that. Obviously Sagu. I think Sagu's loaded, but they're up there. They're not up there, but I think they're two shots. They're two shots. They're two buzzer beaters with LSU Shreveport and Freed
Hmm.
Hardman from being a top five team right now. And so
Yeah.
it's those teams that have lost really close games that are still lurking. That everybody's like, oh, they got four losses. That's a really good four-loss team. They can be top five just
Hmm.
with two shots going in.
Yeah.
So that's just I don't. That's why we don't look at polls.
Yeah.
My goal is qualify, best seed possible, and let's play great basketball and be healthy when it comes that time, because that's all that matters. When you're there at that point, there's, like I said, there's 15, 20 teams who can win it and get on a roll right at the right time. You gotta punch that ticket.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a lot of fun to kind of contemplate and talk about, just because we love NAIA basketball, right? And that's kind of the goal of Champion Sports Network, is to really raise the awareness of the NAIA brand, and we love it because of guys like you, Donnie, that invest in taking these young men to a different level, not just on the court. Matter of fact, the on court, the wins and losses are kind of secondary. And I don't want to belittle. I'm a competitive person too. Wins and losses matter to me. I mean, I hate to lose, probably more than I like to win. But in the NAIA, the coaches seem to have a different level of investment, and it's called the Champions of Character for a reason. And I think it starts with the coaches. And just here as we wrap it up, how hard is it to be a coach? Just in general, just coaches, I don't think are given perceptively just across the board. People don't understand how hard it is to be a coach. How hard is it to be a coach?
I think it's more of um, it's an incredible opportunity, probably the most influential opportunity, even more so than a pastor these days, I would say, to influence young men, young ladies, in a world that needs more good influence than
Mm-hmm.
anything right now. A moral declining world that needs people that'll hold people accountable to working hard, doing right, being a part of a team. Our theme this year is unity. It's supposed to be the United States of America, and it seems like it's the divided states of America, and then the Satan just continues. That's his goal, is to divide and conquer. And our job is to be the opposite. We're supposed to be the light in the dark, and help our young men learn how to be successful in the valley and out of the valley.
Yeah.
Psalms 23 um, was my our team's theme last week. And getting through the valley, and God sets up a table in the middle of that battle, and we have a celebration right there. Expecting victory even though you're in a valley, and He takes us out. Well, Psalms 24 was this past Kansas Wesleyan game, and because Psalms 24 takes you from the valley, now you're going to the mountaintop of Mount Zion, into the where Jesus is at in God's presence back. And David built that and wrote that song all about that. And so um, we have to take kids and teach them, like, hey, if you're in a pit, you praise Him like Joseph did. Because a pit is a valley, and a valley will take you to the top of a mountain, and it says through the valley. And so kids these days, depression, anxiety, panic, suicide,
Mm.
Satan's just throwing everything he can at them. And our job is to help them, give them strength, and tell them where their strength comes from, and where their peace and where their joy comes from. And it's not from fame, it's not from the world, and all the things the world has to offer. And so if we don't, who will teach these young men? Parents need
Yeah.
to. A lot of times they don't have families at home anymore. That
Yeah.
Satan's attacked the family structure and taking the men out of the home. And our job, I'm blessed because at a school like Okla.Wesleyan, I'm able to share the gospel freely. That I know coaches, that, the coach that just, he won the Supreme Court case after getting fired for
Oh
taking
yeah.
a knee after a game. I had his lawyer come up and speak to a group of Christian coaches in a clinic I had called Spirit Led Coach. Um, and he sat there and goes, they just use a stamp on an envelope and send it to your superintendent saying they may sue you. And from a cost of a
Mm.
stamp, they're able to put fear into everybody and shut down any kind of Christian, any kind of moral values and things like that.
Yeah.
And the truth is, they have no power to do that. But they use that, and then everybody gets scared when even a Liberty, um, it's called, oh my goodness, I forget the law firm there in
Yeah.
Texas that will.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
First Liberty. They will.
Okay.
That's who backed up the coach. You just have to contact them and say, hey, do they have the power to do this? And they'll say, no, we'll back you, and then you can stand strong. But nobody knows that.
Yeah.
Um, they
Yeah.
just they let fear dominate, and fear, will take you down, and say to that. So our goal as coaches should be, more than wins and losses. How do we prepare these young men to be great dads, to be successful people that are going to go out and change the world for the better,
Yeah.
and handle adversity. And adversity is a good thing. It's, James 1:2, consider adversity pure joy, because if we, persevere, James 2:12,
Yeah.
like, then we win the prize, and
Yeah.
it's a good thing.
And these are the lessons that are being taught at there seems to be I guess my main point on this is there's a little more freedom at the NAI level, or when I say more freedom, not really a great way to say it, but it just seems to be a little more prevalent to be able to use biblical centric ideas to apply and help develop, and I call it spiritual development, which is a heavy part of the way you coach, and and apply that to practical life after they leave the game of basketball. That will be with them forever. And it's building champions of character. And there's so many great stories in the NAIA across the board of coaches like yourself. It's hard to be a coach, guys. It is very, very hard. But I think we've heard from Coach Bostwick here that it's kind of easy when you when you put God in control and let Him. And I'm sure Donnie is not going to sit here and say, "Oh, it's easy to be a coach." The practicality of it, but actually being able to rest in a philosophy and an idea that is bigger than yourself, and that is the Christian philosophy, especially for Donnie Bostwick. There is a spiritual development mechanism that you can see is attributed to the success of now Okla.Wesleyan's program, or wherever Donnie's footstep has gone. So thank you so much, Coach Bostwick, for taking the time to be with us and really sharing your heart on this. I think is very important for people to hear the recipe of success, not to success, but of success. Like I said early when we started this, and I know you wouldn't say this about yourself, but you allow me, a living legend in coaching in the NAIA. I get it. You're way too humble to accept anything like that because it's just what you do. But from the outside, Donnie, you got to know, well, where people are highly interested in how to succeed and how to live this life fruitfully, and where you can be happy and full of joy every day. And you give a lot of meaning to that. And I think you're a fantastic role model for up-and-coming coaches, for student athletes, and your role in this life has been very important. And I'm just very honored and with pleasure call you friend, and I have a huge amount of respect for what you've done. And 80%, bro, 80% winning percentage. It's unbelievable. I know you point everybody to God through that, but it's just a fact. And I love that is the story. Your story puts you at as the most winningest coach in percentage right now, actively in the game. So I'm honored that you would take the time to be with us. Thank you so much, man. Any last words?
This was true honor. John Wooden started, I think a lot of this. Dan Hayes, I could go on and on. Rocky Lamar, I could go on, all these coaches that I was blessed as a young kid to go to camp. Bob Hoffman, legendary Hall of Fame coaches that I got to watch, and they were my when I looked at somebody and said, "Hey, I want to be like that guy. That's who I want to grow up and be like." And I was able to, God opened doors, for this poor kid from a poor side of town in Pryor to be able to do what I'm doing today. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Today you have so many great models out there. I love Oklahoma softball. She does an incredible job of examples of it. Baltimore Ravens right now, people, you just got to open your eyes to see that God's everywhere and He's doing amazing things. The NAIA does allow us probably a little more freedom than a lot of those guys have to go. The success they have, allows that freedom to be bold. But if you're not having that success, you can get fired in a heartbit.
Yeah,
so,
right. So yeah. The one thing we can say about the NAIA, they don't shut that down, and they're not a religious organization or anything, but they provide a covering, an athletic organizational covering of institutions that generally have this backbone to it, and that's where I think is the strength of the NAIA. And kudos to them for being so attuned to the development of young men to try to create a better world, a better society, a better idea, and they do not stand in the way of what the spiritual development and the God thing in it, and that is very special. Thanks so much, Donnie. I
Hey,
know you got to
kudos.
go,
I love
man.
you guys, man.
I love
Appreciate
you,
you.
man. Yep. Have a great one. That was head coach of the men's basketball program for Oklahoma Wesleyan University, head coach Donnie Bostwick.